the horse his father had given him up as well. When the gravity of the situation had been explained, he changed his pleas to include the son of the village notary, who had been Balasar's closest friend. He had been refused in that as well. His horses and his playmates were going to drown. His father's concern was for Balasar, for the family. The wider world would have to look after itself. Even now, decades later, the memory of those 6 days was fresh as a wound. The bloated bodies of pigs and cattle and people like pale logs floating past the house. The rich, low scent of fouled water. The struggle to sleep when the rushing at the bottom of the stairs seemed like the whisper of something vast and terrible, for which he had no name. He could still hear men's voices questioning whether the food would last, whether the water was safe to drink, and whether the flood was natural, a catastrophe of distant rains, or an attack by the Kayam and their andat. He had not known then what the word meant, but the syllables had taken on the stench of the dead bodies, the devastation where the village had been, the emptiness and the destruction. It was only much later, after the water had receded, the dead had been mourned, the village rebuilt, that he learned how correct he had been. 9 generations of fathers had greeted their new children into the world since the god-kings of the East had turned upon each other, his history tutor told him. When the glory that had been the center of all creation fell, its throes had changed the nature of space. The lands that had been great gardens and fields were deserts now, permanently altered by the war. Even as far as Galt and Edensee, the histories told of weeks of darkness, of failed crops and famine, a sky dancing with flames of green, a sound as if the earth were tearing itself apart. Some people said the stars themselves had changed positions. But the disasters of the past grew in the telling, or faded from memory. No one knew exactly how things had been those many years ago. Perhaps the emperor had gone mad and loosed his personal god-ghost, what they called andat, against his own people, or against himself. Or there might have been a woman, the wife of a great lord, who had been taken by the emperor against her will, or perhaps she'd willed it. Or the 1,000 factions and minor insults and treacheries that accrue around power had simply followed their usual course. As a boy, Balasar had listened to the story, drinking in the tales of mystery and glory and dread. And, when his tutor had told him, somber of tone and grey, that there were only 2 legacies left by the fall of the god-kings, the wastelands that bordered far Galt and Obar state, and the cities of the Kayam where men still held the andat, like cooling, seedless, stone made soft, Balasar had understood the implication as clearly as if it had been spoken. What had happened before could happen again at any time, and without warning.
"And that's what's brought you,"
the High Watchman said.
"It's a long walk from a little boy at his lessons to this place."
Balasar smiled again and leaned forward to sip bitter café from a rough tin mug. His room was baked brick and close as a cell. A cruel wind hissed outside the thick walls, as it had for the 3 long, feverish days since he had returned to the world. The small windows had been scrubbed milky by sandstorms. His little wounds were scabbing over, none of them reddened or hot to the touch, though the stripe on his shoulder, where the satchel strap had been, would doubtless leave a scar.
"It wasn't as romantic as I'd imagined," he said.
The High Watchman laughed, and then, remembering the dead, sobered. Balasar shifted the subject.
"How long have you been here? And who did you offend to get yourself sent to this lovely place?" "8 years. I've been 8 years at this post. I didn't much care for the way things got run in Acton. I suppose this was my way of saying so."
"I'm sure Acton felt the loss."
"I'm sure it didn't. But then I didn't do it for them."